welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I will be sharing with you a few preschool activities that will help your children write their numbers correctly, write their letters correctly, and also break it up by age. So some of the activities will be really good for your toddlers starting about 2. I want to start today's video by saying that it actually is developmentally appropriate for young children up until about elementary age to write their letters and numbers backwards. And not all of them, not all the time, but there are certain numbers and letters that are very typical for kids to mix up. Now, I am a mom of 2. If you're new to my channel, I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I also work in the industry of childhood development and education. So I focus on my channel a lot about the activities, Montessori approach, also how to ease up the homeschool environment, especially in the current times. So if that's the kind of content you're looking for, subscribe to my channel, give this video a like if you liked it, and let's get to it. Being able to write your numbers and write your letters is so much more than just repetition. I'm sure you've seen lots of tracing books, and I myself use quite a few of those. I use Kumon books with my kids. I will also use just the tracing books. But there is more to the process than that. So at about age of 2, you will notice that a lot of the children start developing dominant hand. And it's a very important process because that's what is going to help them eventually to start writing with that hand. Another thing that happens about that age is crossing the midline. I've kind of mentioned crossing midline in a few of my videos, but I will kind of go a bit deeper in this video. So crossing the midline is basically being able to alternate between 2 sides of your brain. It's essentially wiring the 2 sides of your child's brain together, and it is also connected to developing this dominant hand. A lot of the times, infants or younger toddlers, for example, they have a ball on their left side. They will reach out for it with the left hand, where their trunk will slope down. If they have it on the right side, they will reach it with the right hand, regardless of what their side is dominant for them. What you want to do at the age of 2 is start practicing crossing the midline with your child, because that's one of the biggest parts with them being able to actually mimic the numbers and letters on paper in the future. Now, there's a few things that you can do. One of the things is when you do any kind of activity, encourage them crossing over. If they're left-handed, for example, we do transfer. I've just done a video on transfer, so I'll use it as an example. If you're doing the transfer and your child is right-handed, put the object that they need to transfer on the opposite side, encouraging that. Another thing to do with your younger children is see if they're capable to draw a line starting on the other side of their dominant hand. It's a very easy task. Sit your toddler down and see if they can just repeat one line. Then the next thing, if they can do the line down, you can start with just doing the crosses. It's very important. Then make sure they can do the circles, and as they progress by about the age of 3, here's a good activity you can do. Just on a piece of paper, do several squares and put the lines first from one corner to another, then do it opposite and do it on each line separately, and then do diagonal line and horizontal line, and see if your child is able to reproduce those. Work on that skill, practice it. If you don't get it right away, try to incorporate full body movements. Full body movements work great with young children because a lot of the times our brains are just wired this way when we're learning, when we're young. For example, do the crossing. You can have your child stand in front of the dry erase marker board and do a long line as they're standing to encourage the full trunk rotation. Again, if you're trying to do the circle, try to do the circle with the hand in the air in the correct direction. A lot of the times, incorporating physical exercise in wherever you do with your children, especially young children, actually warrants better results because kids are wiggly, they have lots of energy, and it's completely normal. They are not meant to sit still. So try to get the ball, and it's a very easy exercise, and give each other a ball using the full trunk rotation to encourage crossing of that midline. As your child is getting older, by about the age of 3, they should start doing a very simple stick figures. It's a big part in their development, and it can start looking like very funny. So Scarlett, when she first started doing hers, it looked like balloons. She would draw a head with a face, and then there was like a long body line, and then eventually, it progressed and it became unicorns, princesses, and everything that she draws. Justin is at the step of doing faces right now. Encourage your child doing silly faces. I've partially mentioned it in my previous activities video as well, but you can just draw it on the paper or encourage them doing any kind of objects with multiple body parts. When you get into the point of them actually writing their numbers and practicing that, here's the two things. Let's say I'm going to speak about numbers first. If you're working on the progression of numbers with your child, let's say they're writing from 1 to 10 and they start writing their numbers backwards, don't necessarily stop and correct them at that same time, like they go in 1 and then draw 2 backwards and they did 3 right and they did 4, 5. So let them finish that progression and then separately work on the numbers that they have gotten incorrect. So there is no discouragement and you don't break their focus and concentration specifically on accomplishing the task of progression. When you are working with them on writing it correctly, you can give several cues. You can have a visual cue, you can have an auditory cue. It all depends on what kind of learner your child is. I usually use a mixture. So the first thing that I do, I can always say, okay, depending if I'm sitting on the right side of my daughter, I'll be like, okay, it's gonna go towards mommy. Now, if that doesn't work for whatever reason, it still goes another way, draw a box on a piece of paper and put a dot in the top left corner, because most of the numbers you will want to start at the top. And when you teach your child how to write the numbers, try to correct them if they aren't writing from the top. You always want to start at the top. The reason is because as they get older, it won't matter. But right now, while they're learning, they always have this visual point of where they need to start, whether it's letters, whether it's numbers. So let's say you have number 2, number 3 are the most likely to be mixed up just because they are. And with number 2, you put that dot in the top left corner and then you let your child draw. They cannot draw outside of the box, so that gives them a visual cue. Okay, my line needs to go the opposite way. And then you can go down and then you can touch it. Now, if you want to practice that a little more in introducing the whole body, I have this tray that I've made and I've shared it in many of my videos with colored quinoa and beads. You can use salt, you can use soda, any kind of, even sand, any kind of like a gritty substance inside the wooden box that creates friction, it will work. And then practice those, because you can draw it in that box and then shake it off and draw it again. So repetition does work. Repetition that is not fun is what kills the vibe for young children. So always try to incorporate something fun while you're doing it. Now, when it comes to tracing, here's a few books that I personally like. There's this series, Wipe Clean Workbooks by Pretty Books, and they are basically just tracing with dry erase marker. Then I say this ones are good for about maybe like 3-year-olds, like Justin's age, just because it does get daunting. It's not entertaining enough for older children. And for like older kids, which I use it for Justin as well, is Kumon books, because it is a little bit more fun and it's a little bit more complex the way they do it. So it kind of goes into several different concepts. And also with tracing, one thing, if you're doing it at home, get yourself dry erase marker board. They're really inexpensive. Let me show you mine. So it's the two things that you'll need to have at home is a dry erase marker board. Mine is quite used, but I think it was from like a dollar store or something. And then just a plastic sleeve. Here you can see like that was something we did with Scarlett during the school year. It was Tuesday in yellow because you don't see it as well. And then she had to write it herself. She's at the point of writing everything herself. So that was a little, when she was a bit younger. But anyways, so this plastic sleeve is great because you can create your own materials. You could do printout, slide it in there, and then just reuse it as many times as you need to. Briefly touch upon this because I am filming this video and it does say, what if your child doesn't write numbers correctly? Now, if your child is not crossing the midline and they're about 3 years of age, so they aren't able to do a continuous line, you might want to talk to your pediatrician because they might have to do some work with occupational therapy. It is an important skill and it is almost like a prerequisite for them to be able to progress further. Everything that we do as children and as humans is a series of steps. I talk about it in my videos a lot. Your pincer grasp starts at the age when you're first born, when you first start touching and feeling and playing with all those toys. So it all builds up on each other, and the same for reading, writing skills. You know, it's not only the pincer grasp, it's other parts of being able to mimic and being able to reproduce the images on paper. So if you ever have any concerns, talk to your pediatrician. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and it was helpful for you. Give me a like if you like this video, subscribe to my channel if that's the kind of content you're looking for, and I'll see you later.